when a loyal maid of 30 years defied her billionaire boss in his own mansion, holding him by the collar and calling him blind before the entire household. Nobody knew the truth she'd been hiding or the secret that could destroy everything he thought he knew about his late mother. The morning sun spilled across the skyline of Manhattan, setting the glass towers on fire with gold. From 35 floors above the city, the Hawthorne penthouse shimmered like a trophy, polished, perfect, and painfully cold. It was the kind of place where silence was louder than life, where even the air felt expensive. Inside, Clara Daniels moved quietly across the marble floor, her black uniform crisp, her hair tied neatly in a bun streaked with silver. She had worked in this home for more than 3 decades, long before it became Ethan Hawthorne's empire, when it still had warmth, when the laughter of his late mother, Margaret, echoed through the halls. Now the laughter was gone. So was Margaret, and the house, once alive, had turned into a cage of glass and wealth. Clara stopped in front of a grand portrait that hung above the fireplace. Margaret Hawthorne, dressed in a pearl gray gown, smiling gently at a younger version of her son. Ethan had been maybe 10 then, his eyes soft and bright, his small hand resting in his mother's. Clara's throat tightened. She had been there the day that picture was taken. Margaret had made her promise something that morning, a promise Clara had kept, even now, even after Margaret was gone. "Clara," she'd said, holding her hand, "if anything ever happens to me, take care of Ethan. Protect him, even from himself." She still heard that voice in her head. Every day. "Mrs. Daniels," came a sharp, feminine tone from behind. Clara turned. Vanessa Hawthorne stood at the top of the marble staircase, a vision in silk, tall, blonde, perfect, and icy. Ethan's wife of 2 years, younger than him by nearly a decade. Every step she took down those stairs seemed rehearsed, graceful, confident, deliberate. "Yes, ma'am," Clara replied quietly. Vanessa's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Mr. Hawthorne will be hosting guests tonight. Make sure the dining area shines. And please, avoid touching my personal drawers again. I don't like being invaded." Clara frowned slightly. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't recall going near your drawers." Vanessa tilted her head, amused. "Oh, then maybe the jewelry just walked off on its own." Before Clara could answer, a deeper voice echoed from the hallway. "Vanessa," Ethan called, stepping out of his office. Ethan Hawthorne, mid-30s, sharp suit, sharper jawline, carried himself like a man who'd forgotten what it meant to smile. His life was a list of board meetings and stock exchanges, his emotions sealed behind steel-gray eyes. He glanced between his wife and Clara. "What's going on here?" Vanessa exhaled dramatically. "Ethan, I didn't want to say this in front of the staff, but my diamond bracelet is missing. The one your mother gave me. I searched everywhere. And guess who was dusting my vanity this morning?" The room seemed to shrink. Clara's heart thudded once, twice, then steadied. "Mrs. Hawthorne," she said calmly. "I would never." Vanessa's voice cut her off, laced with mock sorrow. "You've been here so long, Clara. Maybe too long. You think you can get away with anything because you raised him." She gestured at Ethan. "But this is our home now, and I won't tolerate lies under my roof." Ethan rubbed his temple. "Vanessa, maybe it's misplaced. Let's not." "It's stolen," Vanessa snapped. "Ask her where she put it." The housekeeper by the door stared silently, eyes darting between the 3 of them. Clara's voice trembled, not with fear but with something deeper, exhaustion. "I have served this family for 34 years, sir. I've never taken a dime that wasn't mine. Your mother trusted me." Ethan's tone hardened. "Clara, just let it go. Vanessa feels uncomfortable. Maybe it's time you took some rest, a few weeks off." Vanessa smirked faintly, turning away as if the matter was settled. But Clara didn't move. She stood straight, her spine unbending, her old eyes glimmering with pain and defiance. "I will not leave," she said quietly. Ethan turned back. "Excuse me." Her hand shook slightly as she spoke, but her voice rose, clear and unwavering. "I will not leave, Mr. Hawthorne. Not until I uncover what really happened to your mother." The room fell silent. Even the sound of the city below seemed to vanish. Vanessa froze mid-step. Ethan blinked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice low. Clara looked at him, and for a moment he wasn't the billionaire heir. He was the little boy she'd once held when he cried. "Your mother didn't just die, Ethan," she whispered. "There was more, and you're sleeping about it. I won't leave till I uncover that which you won't." The words sliced through the silence like a blade. Vanessa's expression faltered. Ethan's jaw tightened. And just like that, the perfect glass walls of the Hawthorne penthouse began to crack. Not with sound, but with truth waiting to be heard. The room felt heavier after Clara's words, as though every ounce of air had turned into glass. Vanessa's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, the only sound breaking the thick silence. "Enough of this madness," she said, forcing a trembling laugh. "Ethan, do you hear her? She's accusing me of something ridiculous. Maybe age is finally getting to her." But Clara didn't flinch. She stood with the steadiness of someone who had nothing left to lose. The chandelier's golden light reflected off her eyes, sharp with truth and fire. Ethan crossed his arms, his voice tight. "Clara, this is absurd. My mother died of heart failure. I was there. The doctors confirmed it." Clara met his gaze. "Yes, sir. The doctors said what they were told to say." Vanessa scoffed. "Oh, please. You're losing your mind." But something in Ethan's face changed, just slightly. The certainty behind his arrogance cracked, replaced by a faint echo of doubt. He had always trusted Clara. She had been there at every milestone, the graduations, the funerals, the lonely nights when his father walked out. Clara had been family before wealth divided them. "Clara," Ethan said slowly, "you were like a mother to me. But this is crossing a line." "I know," Clara whispered, "and I wouldn't cross it if I didn't have to." Vanessa threw her hands up. "Ethan, are you seriously entertaining this? She's trying to cover her tracks. This entire your mother was murdered story is nothing but a distraction." But Clara turned to her, her tone calm but razor-sharp. "You think money can bury everything, don't you? That because people bow to your name, they'll forget what they see." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Watch your mouth." "I have," Clara said softly. "For 2 years. I've watched it all. The quiet meetings at midnight, the pills you brought home, the whispers to the lawyer after Mrs. Hawthorne's death. You think no one notices what you do when you smile." Ethan's voice trembled. "Clara, that's enough." "Is it?" she interrupted gently. "Or have you been too blind to see the woman sleeping beside you?" The words hit him like thunder. His throat tightened, his heartbeat loud in his ears. Vanessa turned toward him, her expression shifting into practiced innocence. "Ethan," she said quickly, touching his arm, "you're not going to believe this old woman, are you? She's jealous. That's what this is. She's upset your mother left everything to you instead of her." Clara's lips curved into a sad smile. "Your mother left everything to you, Ethan, but she knew you'd need protection. She thought her love would be enough to guide you. She was wrong. You let this house lose its soul." Ethan stepped back, shaking his head. "I'm not doing this. I have meetings, clients. I can't sit here listening to conspiracy theories." He started to walk away, but Clara's next words froze him mid-step. "Ask yourself," she said quietly, "why your mother changed her will a week before she died." Ethan turned, his face pale. "What?" Vanessa's expression flickered for the briefest second, a small, involuntary twitch of panic. Clara saw it. So did the 2 housemaids standing by the door. "Your mother told me she was rewriting her will," Clara continued. "She said there were things she needed to fix. She seemed afraid, Ethan. She didn't want to leave the house that day. And the only person who insisted she take that herbal tea before bed was your wife." Vanessa's voice broke through, shrill and trembling. "This is insane. You can't possibly." "Enough," Ethan snapped, his hand slicing through the air. He looked at Clara, then Vanessa, his chest rising and falling fast. "I don't know what's going on, but I'm not having this argument in my house." He turned to Clara. "Pack your things. You're leaving today. I'll have your severance arranged." The silence was heavy, a silence that carried betrayal, pain, and the ghost of Margaret Hawthorne's laughter. Clara's lips trembled, but she didn't beg. She didn't move. She simply looked at Ethan, that same little boy she had once bandaged when he scraped his knees. "Before I go," she said softly, "just ask yourself one thing. Why would a woman with no health history, who never missed her prayers, suddenly die in her sleep right after changing her will?" Ethan said nothing. His eyes darted toward Vanessa, but she had already turned away, pretending to sob into her hands. The guard stepped forward to escort Clara out. She didn't fight them. She simply whispered, "I'll leave, but truth doesn't stay buried forever." And as the elevator doors closed behind her, Ethan caught her reflection in the mirrored walls, old, tired, yet unbroken. That reflection stayed in his mind long after she was gone. That night, long after the mansion went dark, Ethan found himself standing in his mother's study, unable to sleep. For the first time in years, he felt afraid, not of what Clara had said, but of what he might discover if she was right. The city never truly slept, but that night, Manhattan felt quieter than usual. From Ethan Hawthorne's office, the skyline glowed in fractured reflections on the window, a grid of gold and shadow. Inside, the billionaire sat alone, surrounded by silence and the faint hum of his mother's old grandfather clock. The whiskey glass in his hand trembled slightly as he took another sip. He hadn't slept since Clara's outburst. Her words looped in his mind like an old record. "Your mother didn't just die. Ethan, there was more." He wanted to forget. God, he wanted to. But he couldn't. His eyes drifted to the framed photo on his desk, his mother, Margaret Hawthorne, smiling at him during his graduation. He could still remember how she'd fixed his tie that day, saying softly, "Money will make people serve you, Ethan. But love is the only thing that makes them stay." He swallowed hard. Clara had been standing behind them that day, clapping proudly. Now that same woman, the one who raised him, protected him, taught him humility, was gone from his house under accusations he wasn't even sure he believed anymore. Ethan leaned back in his leather chair, eyes darting to his computer screen. His mother's medical records were open, files he hadn't looked at in 2 years. He scrolled through them, the hospital name glowing at the top, St. Vincent's Medical Center. Heart failure. No pre-existing condition. Time of death, 10:42 p.m. Toxicology, negative. Something didn't feel right. He clicked through the attached reports again, brow furrowing. His mother's regular physician had been Dr. Anita Klein, yet the final report was signed off by Dr. Richard Meldon, a name he didn't recognize. Ethan frowned and picked up his phone. He searched the name online. Nothing came up. No active license. No record of employment. Just gone. His pulse quickened. He clicked back to the hospital's online archive and noticed a line at the bottom of the file. Case reviewed under administrative confidentiality. "What the hell does that mean?" he whispered. The longer he stared at the screen, the clearer it became. Clara hadn't just been angry. She had known something. He ran a hand over his face and opened his mother's old voicemail folder. Most of the messages were from friends, charities, and business partners. But one stood out, timestamped 2 days before her death. The file name was blurred with a warning. Corrupted audio. Ethan clicked it anyway. The playback was fuzzy, static bleeding through. But a voice broke through, faint, trembling, unmistakably his mother's. "Ethan, if you get this, please call me. I think someone's been in my room," Vanessa said. The audio cut off abruptly. Ethan froze. His stomach dropped, his hands tightening around the edge of the desk until his knuckles went white. He replayed the message 3 times, each time the same, ending right after Vanessa's name. He stood up, pacing, chest tight. No, this can't be real. He looked toward the door of his office, toward the closed hallway that led to their bedroom. He could hear faint laughter earlier that evening, Vanessa on the phone, her tone sweet and polished. But now it was quiet, too quiet. Then he heard it, a voice, muffled but distinct. Ethan froze, leaning toward the slightly open door. The sound was coming from down the hall, Vanessa's voice, sharp and anxious. He moved silently, each step echoing against the hardwood floors, until he stopped just outside the guest lounge. The door was slightly ajar. "I told you to handle it," Vanessa hissed. Her tone was low but furious. A man's voice replied, muffled, impatient. I did. I paid off the nurse. I deleted the entries. What more do you want from me? Vanessa's voice trembled. I want this over. He's starting to ask questions, and Clara's running her mouth again. Ethan's breath caught. The man sighed. Calm down, Vanessa. There's no way he'll find out. The coroner's report was rewritten. Unless someone digs into. Don't say that. Vanessa snapped. If he ever finds out about the sedative, we're both done. Ethan's body went cold. His heart thundered in his ears. Sedative. Deleted entries. Paid off nurse. The words slammed into him like bricks. He stumbled backward, steadying himself against the wall. For a moment he couldn't breathe. His mind raced, images flashing in his head like lightning. His mother's final night, the untouched cup of tea beside her bed, Vanessa's tearless sobs at the funeral, the rush to settle the estate. It all made sense now. Ethan pressed a hand against his mouth, his pulse roaring. Clara had been right. He turned toward the window, staring out at the glittering city below. Millions of lights, millions of stories, and his own life, unraveling inside a tower of lies. Somewhere deep down, a fire began to burn, not of rage, but of shame, guilt, and the desperate need for truth. For the first time since his mother's death, Ethan felt her presence, not as a memory, but as a whisper in his heart. Protect him, even from himself. He straightened his tie, his jaw tightening. Tomorrow, he would confront them both. And this time, he wouldn't look away. As Ethan turned off the office lights, the last sound echoing through the hall wasn't his own footsteps. It was Vanessa's voice, faint and furious, whispering into the phone again. He knows something. Do whatever it takes before he talks to her again. The sun rose cold over Manhattan, its light slicing through the glass walls of the Hawthorne penthouse, like truth through lies. Ethan stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the untouched cup of coffee in front of him. His suit jacket hung loose around his shoulders, his eyes shadowed from a sleepless night. The weight of everything he'd heard, the call, the words, the sedative, haunted him like a ghost he couldn't unsee. He'd spent the night replaying every detail, the day of his mother's death, the funeral, the months of numbness that followed. The memory of Clara's accusation wasn't just echoing now, it was screaming. Behind him, the elevator chimed softly. He turned and froze. Clara stood there. Her hands were clasped in front of her apron, her eyes steady and sad. She looked smaller than he remembered, but her presence filled the room with something heavy, undeniable, truth. The guards had let her in. Ethan had told them to, though he wasn't sure why. Maybe because part of him knew this confrontation was inevitable. "Morning, sir," she said quietly. He exhaled, voice flat. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," Clara replied, "but I needed to see you before it's too late." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Too late for what, Clara? More riddles? More accusations against my wife?" Her lips tightened. "You already know what I'm talking about." He stepped closer, jaw clenched. "No. What I know is that my housekeeper of 30 years has lost her mind. You've gone from loyal to delusional overnight." Clara didn't blink. "And yet here I am, still standing in your kitchen, still not wrong." Ethan slammed his hand on the counter, his temper finally cracking. "Enough, Clara. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what it's like to lose a mother and have the world watch you fall apart." Her voice rose, not in anger, but in something deeper. "I was there when you did fall apart. I was the one who picked you up when your father left. I stayed when everyone else turned their back. And this is how you talk to me." He turned away, breathing hard. "You think loyalty gives you permission to accuse the woman I love?" There was a silence, sharp, painful. Then Clara spoke, her tone trembling with fury and sorrow. "Love," she repeated softly. "Ethan, what you have isn't love. It's blindness wrapped in perfume." He spun toward her, eyes blazing. "Careful, Clara." But she didn't flinch. She stepped closer, her voice growing firm, each word landing like a hammer on steel. "I watched your mother build this home with kindness. I watched her give her soul to people who didn't deserve half her grace. And I've watched you turn her house into a museum for greed. You think money makes you a man." Ethan's breath caught. stunned by her audacity. Clara moved closer still, until she was inches away. Then, in one motion, she reached up and grabbed him by the collar. The gesture was shocking, raw, almost primal. Her fingers gripped his suit, her eyes blazing with something ancient, the anger of a woman who had swallowed her pain too long. Her voice dropped, low and trembling with power. "Your mother raised you better, Ethan. You've let a viper control your house. Wake up before she buries your soul too." Ethan stared at her, stunned, shaken, silenced. The air between them crackled. For the first time, Clara's words didn't sound like rebellion. They sounded like truth. She slowly released his collar, her chest heaving. "I warned your mother once," she whispered. "I begged her to cut ties with certain people, but she wouldn't listen. Don't make the same mistake." Ethan swallowed hard, the anger in his chest dissolving into something else, confusion, guilt, fear. He took a step back, his voice low. "If what you're saying is true, then prove it. Show me something real, Clara. I want proof, not just words." Clara's gaze softened. Her lips quivered slightly, and she nodded. "I kept something," she said quietly. "For years. Your mother gave it to me the week before she died. She said, 'If anything happens to me, give this to Ethan when he's ready to hear the truth.'" Ethan's heart stopped. "What did she give you?" Clara looked down at her trembling hands. "A letter. Her last one. It's hidden in my old quarters, under the floorboard where your mother used to hide her journals." The room went dead silent. Ethan felt his pulse in his throat. The truth he had feared all night was suddenly standing right in front of him, waiting to be found. He nodded slowly. "We'll go together." Clara nodded back, tears welling in her eyes. Behind them, the faint sound of a heel clicking echoed down the hallway. Vanessa. She had been listening. Her face appeared in the doorway, mask-like and cold. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were on fire. "Going somewhere?" she asked smoothly. Neither of them answered, but for the first time, Ethan saw it. The darkness behind that beauty, the venom behind that smile. And he knew then, Clara had been right all along. Vanessa steps closer, voice dripping with composure. "Whatever it is you think you'll find, Ethan," she said softly, "you're not ready for it." Ethan turned toward Clara, jaw tightening. "Then it's time I get ready." The old maid's quarters had been locked for years. Dust floated in thin beams of light that cut through the half-drawn curtains. The room smelled of wood polish and silence, a space frozen in time. Ethan stood in the doorway, his shadow long against the floor, while Clara lingered behind him, her hands trembling as she clutched a ring of old keys. "This is where your mother used to come when she wanted to be alone," Clara said softly, her voice carrying memories rather than words. "She trusted no one except me." Ethan nodded wordlessly. He felt like a stranger walking through a memory, every creak of the floorboards echoing through his chest. He glanced at the worn dresser, the faded photographs on the wall, the simple bed where Clara used to rest after long nights serving the hawthorns. "Where did you hide it?" he asked finally, his tone barely above a whisper. Clara stepped forward and knelt near the corner of the room. She pressed her palm against one loose floorboard. It gave a faint wooden sigh. Slowly, she pried it open, reaching inside the hollow space beneath. From the darkness, she pulled out a small tin box, weathered, its edges rusted with time. She handed it to Ethan, her fingers trembling. "It's all there," she whispered. Everything she couldn't say. Ethan stared at the box like it held a heartbeat. He hesitated, then opened it. Inside lay a folded piece of ivory stationery, slightly yellowed with age. His mother's handwriting, graceful and familiar, curved across the top. The moment he saw her penmanship, his breath caught. His throat tightened as he unfolded the letter. He began to read aloud, voice breaking with every word. "My dearest Ethan, if you are reading this, it means I did not live long enough to tell you the truth myself. I fear that the woman you trust, Vanessa, has slowly been taking from us both. I discovered she's been replacing my medication and slipping something into my tea. I felt it the day I collapsed. Clara tried to warn me. She begged me to send Vanessa away. But Vanessa threatened her life, and I told her to stay silent to protect herself. If I am gone, know this. My death was no accident. Do not let your heart harden, my son, but let truth guide you. Love is not blind obedience. It is seeing clearly and still choosing kindness. Forgive Clara if she kept this from you. She only did what I asked. She was my guardian when the world grew cold. With love always. Mother. Ethan's voice faltered. He couldn't finish the last line. His hand dropped, and the paper fluttered onto the floor. Silence filled the room like grief itself. Clara's eyes glistened as she clasped her hands to her lips. The tears came quietly, not from guilt, but from the release of years of buried truth. I wanted to tell you, she whispered, every single day. But your mother, she made me promise. And when Vanessa took control of the house, I couldn't risk it. I thought, maybe if I prayed hard enough, truth would find its way. Ethan knelt beside her, his own tears falling freely now. Clara, he said hoarsely, you didn't fail her. You didn't fail me. He picked up the letter again, staring at the elegant handwriting as though it could bring his mother back. I failed both of you. I let her poison everything. Not just my mother's tea, but my own soul. From the hallway, the sound of heels approached, slow, deliberate. Vanessa. Ethan rose, wiping his tears, and turned toward the doorway. She appeared, perfectly composed, her expression cool as glass. Touching reunion, she said, her voice dripping venom. But I'm afraid that letter won't save you, Clara. It's just paper. Ethan's tone hardened, colder than she'd ever heard. It's not just paper, he said. It's evidence. Behind him, a man stepped into view, Ethan's private investigator, followed by 2 officers. Vanessa's smile faltered. I had your phone tracked last night, Ethan continued, his voice steady. I know about the pharmacy accounts, the altered prescriptions, the money you funneled through my company. Vanessa's mask cracked. You can't prove. The officer interrupted, reading her rights as handcuffs clicked shut. Her calm facade shattered, replaced by panic and fury. As they led her away, she turned her head sharply toward Clara. You old witch. Enough, Ethan snapped. You've said enough. The door slammed. Silence reclaimed the room. Clara sank onto the edge of her bed, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. Ethan stood beside her, eyes soft with regret and gratitude. You can rest now, he said gently. It's over. She nodded, voice barely a whisper. It's never over for people like me, Ethan. We serve, we survive, and when truth finally wins, we just fade quietly. Ethan crouched beside her, shaking his head. No, not this time. He reached for her hand. You're not just someone who served, Clara. You're family. You were my mother's strength and mine. Her tears came harder now, but this time they carried relief. Family, she murmured. It's been so long since anyone called me that. Ethan smiled faintly. Then it's time someone did. She stood slowly, looking around the old room one last time. Maybe it's time I pack my things, she said softly. Ethan stopped her, his voice firm but kind. No, this house needs light again, and it starts with you. Sometimes loyalty is louder than blood, and sometimes the ones who seem powerless are the only ones who can save the powerful from themselves.